Okay, the first thing you need to do is open your ISN to page 7. There are notes in here about adding and subtracting integers that will help you for today. So you can pause the video and open that. Alright, so the first thing you do is look at the signs and decide, are they the same or are they different? Okay, in this case, the signs are the same. So the signs equal same. Okay, so your ISN says to add and keep the sign. Okay, so we're going to add and keep the sign. So in the end, my answer is going to be negative. Okay, don't forget that. Alright, so this now becomes a different problem. 3 2/5 because I'm adding and keeping the sign. So I'm going to drop the signs for right now and just put it back on at the very end. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is find a common denominator. Okay, so the common denominator for 5 and 4 is 20. So this becomes 3 and something over 20 plus 2 and something over 20. Okay, so I multiplied the 5 by 4 to make the bottom 20. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, over here I multiplied the 4 by 5 to make my new denominator of 20. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So this becomes 15 over 20. Okay, so my second step then is just to add. Okay, so I'm going to add the whole numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5. Then I'm going to add my fractions. 8 plus 15 is 23. Keep the denominator. Okay, well this looks weird. I have a mixed number and an improper fraction. So I need to change this. Okay, to change from improper to a mixed number, you divide the top by the bottom. 20 goes into 23 once with a remainder of 3. So this is 1 3/20. Okay, so I have 1 3/20 and I have a 5. Okay, so that becomes 5 plus 1 is 6 3/20. Okay, now don't forget, way back at the beginning we decided the signs were the same, so we're going to add and keep the sign, meaning my answer is negative 6 3/20. Example number 2. We are adding rational numbers when the signs are different. So this is positive 14 1/4 plus a negative 5 2/3. Remember, adding a negative is the same as subtracting. So my signs are different. I'm going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. So keep sign of bigger number. 14 1/4 is bigger, so my answer is going to end up being positive. Okay, so remember that number 1 is to make sure we have a common denominator. We do not already have a common denominator, so we need to figure that out. So the first thing is to find a common denominator. Common denominator. Okay, so right here, the 4 and the 3, 12 is what they have in common. So I'm going to change this into 14 and something over 12. Okay, we are subtracting minus 5 and something over 12. Okay, 4 times 3 is 12. Whatever I do to the bottom, I need to do to the top. 3 times 4 is 12. Whatever I do to the bottom, I need to do to the top. Okay, so my second step is to actually do the subtraction. Okay, so looking here, I can see right away that I cannot do 3 minus 8. I'm going to need to do what's called borrowing. So you have learned this before, so pay very close attention to how I'm going to do this. So I can't do 3 minus 8, so I need the 3 to be bigger. So I'm going to take this 14 and 3/12. Okay, and right here I am borrowing. Okay, I'm going to take 1 away from the 14 and make it 13. I have to give 1 back to the fraction. I have to add 1. Well, to add 1 as a fraction, you have to make it a fraction with the same denominator. You can't add unless you have common denominators. 12 divided by 12 is 1. And I chose 12 so that they could have a common denominator. Okay? So this fraction ends up being 13, and then 3 plus 12 is 15. Keep the denominator. Okay? So we borrowed, and then we're going to go back and subtract. So I have 13 and 15 over 12 minus 5 and 8 over 12. Okay, then I just subtract. I subtract my whole numbers. 13 minus 5, I get 8. 15 minus 8, I get 7. Keep my denominator. Let's double check to make sure that whether I'm supposed to be positive or negative. I subtracted and keep the sign of the bigger number, which was positive. So this is my final answer, and it is positive. If you got confused because I went too fast, please rewind and watch this again, especially paying attention to the borrowing part, or please ask questions if you need more clarification. Alright, on to the next example. This one should be a lot easier because it's decimal, so adding rational numbers with decimals, and I have negative 20 and 245 thousandths plus 15 and 12 hundredths. Well, my signs are different. Okay, so I'm going to be subtracting and keeping the sign of the one with the bigger absolute value. Okay, so keep the sign of the larger, which is the negative 20 and 245 thousandths. Okay, so first step, okay, let's do this. The first step when subtracting is to line up the decimals. Okay, so I'm going to line up my decimals. 20.1, oh man, not 0.1, 0.245, and then I have 15.12. Okay, my second step when dealing with decimals, okay, fill in zeros where there's empty spots. So here's an empty spot. Okay, then my third step is I'm actually going to start subtracting now. Okay, so let's draw my line. Remember that we are lining up the decimal. 5 minus 0 is 5. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. 20 minus 15 is 5. So this is our answer. The pen's difficult. Please don't have any floating decimals like me. I've got a bad example going on here. Okay, so we're going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number, or the one with the biggest absolute value, which is this one, and it's negative. So my final answer is negative 5.125. So negative 5 and 125 thousandths. Okay, that is all the examples for adding rational numbers. You can watch a video too to learn how to subtract rational numbers.